Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome back to the Networking RX podcast. You know, when we think of relationships, professional relationships, personal relationships, we think of a lot of positive things. Hollywood kind of portrays these stories. Yeah, there are some stories that end horribly, but usually it's the beginning. There's a rocky middle, and then everything's solved in the end. And a lot of what I talk about on this podcast are the positive relationships. But there are the negative ones. There are the negative relationships. I spent years as a tax consultant in public accounting and was largely miserable, not so much because of the work, and not so much because of the people I knew and called friends, but just kind of toxic bosses, not bosses, a couple in particular, and struggled for a while getting through that. And people have the same sorts of things with respect to personal relationships. I know people who have never healed from something that happened in college and have missed out on so much in life because they can't get beyond it. Today, I have Paul King Brown on with us, and Paul does a lot of work in these areas, and he has a business out there where people grow. And Paul, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you. Welcome. Good to see you.
Good to see you again.
For those listening, good to see you.
Yeah. I guess give us a quick tour as to how you got to this place. Really born out of experience, right?
Wow. How did I get to this place? One day, this guy came into my office, and I was the advertising sales director. And for those who are trying to work out how old I am, this will date me. But imagine a guy called Gordon Gekko in advertising. I was seen as this guy, and this guy walks into my office and he sits down in my office and he says to me, "Paul, he works for me." He says, "I wish I was you. I have, you have this job, you have these people who work for you, you have a beautiful wife, you have a daughter, you have it all, you have money, blah, 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 blah." And I always remember this time, and because a week later, my seemingly amazing life crashed because I discovered the next week that my wife was having an affair, and I crumbled. I absolutely crumbled. I wish I could tell you that I was like strong and I was super, but I was crawling on the floor. And it took me a long time. It took me many, many years to sort of just to heal. It took me 10 years just to heal, then probably another 5 to just move on from then, and then you work out one of the things, and when we talk about it a lot, I was talking to my mother the other day, how much of our lives which we're working out the issues of our childhood. So I had these massive abandonment issues, and then my wife was the person who abandoned me, and how you deal with that. But one of the things I went through when I was healing was, all I kept thinking was that I couldn't let anybody else go through this, that I really couldn't do this. And so I wrote a book. I accidentally started counseling, and then I went into really heavy trauma counseling, and to go from there, because I just didn't want anybody to go through this. And so I saw myself as, imagine there are 12 bus stops, and I was at bus stop number 12, and I could see you, Frank, at bus stop number 2. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to be the person who was holding your hand along the way, number 3, number 4. I couldn't stop you from going through your journey. I can't, like a cocoon to a butterfly, it's a journey that you have to go through. But it was something that is incredibly lonely. And I think there's something amazing about someone walking with you through this. I was climbing up a mountain. I say climbing. The people who know the story know that I'm not a very good climber, but I was in Norway, and the Norwegians are very athletic, and we were climbing up a mountain, and I wasn't doing very well. And my friend Evan, who obviously saw that I wasn't very well. There's a group of 10 of us. We're walking up this mountain, but I was lagging behind. As the space gets a bit more, bigger, they're more further ahead. And Evan comes back, and he says to me, I've got two sons. They're quite young then. He says, my son's lagged back. He says, I'm going to stay here with you, and we're going to make it to the top. And so he just talked to me. He just talked to me, and in talking to me, I realized I wasn't focusing on the steps. I was just moving one foot to the other. It wasn't as difficult. He stood by my side, and I made it to the top. And I knew that without him, I probably would have turned around or just given up. And so I see that story as very much a part of my role, really, is in any way possible to be an encourager, to be there. Sometimes you're in grief. Sometimes it's not talking. It's sometimes just shutting up. It's just being there. But I think that we are more powerful. I think that we are more powerful together. And so that is really the thing that drives me. Really is to be an encourager, and I enjoy it. I got to be honest with you that I recognized my healing accelerated once I was helping other people. I was looking for all these self-help things and books, and I was reading on how to personal development, and it was okay. But I then found that in immersing myself in other people's pain and being with them, that actually mine seemed to be lesser and be lessened from them.
Interesting. I read I'm almost embarrassed to say this. I read a post on Facebook, and that sounds trashy in and of itself. But
I post a lot on Facebook, so it's okay.
The post was something akin to people who are able to pull from a toxic relationship and put it behind them right away are narcissistic. They were never really invested in that relationship. And people who struggle are really good people, and they're the ones who are really totally invested in it. So I wanted to just throw that at you and kind of get your reaction. I don't know, your wife might be your first wife might be on another podcast right now telling a totally different story.
Absolutely, she probably is, and because it's her story, and that is valid as well as my story, my perspective, but all our stories are.
Yeah, but did it seem like she just moved on really quickly, like it didn't bother her, and that may have been more hurtful?
It was horrific. The idea, I think, let me preface it with this before I go on, because it's easy just to be the victim. One of the things I've learned is try to not to judge, because we get it so wrong. So my idea is that she has the best end of the whole story, and she's got a wonderful life, and she has a wonderful this, and she has wonderful that, and I'm the insignificant one, and she's the most amazing one. And then I remember years later someone telling me her story. They gossiped to me about well, it's not all, the grass isn't always greener, and blah 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 blah, and I felt sad. I didn't feel like, glad or glee or any sort of, take any pride in the pain that she might be suffering, because I think that sometimes when we have so much pain, we have no appreciation of the other person's pain, or we haven't got time for that to feel it. I'm too busy dealing with my own, and I can't do anything about her pain. I'm not there. She doesn't need me I'm not the person that's going to help her with that. So I'm learning 15, 16 years on that I can't judge my daughter. I remember my daughter My daughter was 12 when it happened, and 23 when she spoke about it. And I remember being a bit judgmental about my daughter, because what happened was that we were very close, and when the actual split happened, my then wife and my daughter went away for 4 days. They went away for about a week to a friend's while I was left with the house, and then 4 days later I moved out of the house. And I remember my daughter walking out the door with my ex, and then I had this Hollywood scene. The Hollywood scene was her holding on to my leg, going, "Dad, please don't go, please don't go." And I know this is unfair of a 12-year-old child, but emotionally, I held this against her. I thought, like, how could you just walk out and not say anything, you know? So she was 23, and we were. She was going away. She was traveling around the world, and I had insisted that she spoke to both sides of the family and tell all the family that she was going, and say goodbye politely to, you know, grandparents, etc.
Right.
And whatever. And so we were having dinner the night before she was leaving to go to China, India, New Zealand. She travelled around the other eastern part of the world. It was a fantastic experience for her. She planned it and paid for it, and she hadn't said goodbye to a few of the people in my family. And I was just very upset with her. I brought her up to be polite, and I said to her, "Listen, you know, I kept asking you about this. Why haven't you done this?" And she said to me, "I didn't." And she suddenly just burst out and said, "I didn't choose this. I didn't ask for two families. This wasn't what I asked for. Why do I have to do this? I didn't choose this." And then she literally had a breakdown in the middle of this restaurant of what should have happened in my eyes when she was 12. And in this time, rather than have amazing compassion, there, I let this thing come out. And I said to her, and I was honest with her, I said, "Listen, I was equally upset that you didn't ask me to stay, you know." I mean, she said to me, and then she turned around to me, and she just stopped, and she turned around to me and said, "Did you ever think that I was shocked and stunned as you in this situation? Did you ever think that?" And I never thought it. And I didn't think it. And then we were, you know, then at the time I thought, wow, you know, I was so consumed with my own pain that I just couldn't appreciate anybody else's. And I think that there's a lot of pain. I think that when people break, there's pain on both sides. I can't appreciate that the hurt person cannot always appreciate that the other person. Sometimes, you know, do you know when you're at school and the seemingly the power goes to the person who broke up with you,
right?
You know, and we never think that they are there in pain. We think they have the power, but actually, sometimes it might even be more difficult for them because they are making the decisions. The other person is the reactor to that, and they can't do anything just but react, you know. But so I find not to judge. It's you that you do not know. It's easy from the quote that you were saying. I think the assessment of what you're saying could be quite correct.
Sure.
It seems that if you don't care, that there wasn't the caring there. But I tend to find that life just comes back. So I don't know whether you read the Bible, but there's this text in the Bible which is quite sort of strange, and it says, and it talks about vengeance, and it says, and God says, "Vengeance is mine," says God. And then you know, when you go through a hurt, traumatic situation, you think vengeful things.
Sure.
And I worked out, and if I'm wrong, I'm sure your listeners will tell me. I worked out that we actually never get revenge because we're never there. We're never there. The other person can be suffering, and we are not there to witness it. We have an illusion that they're having this great life. And I worked out, this is going to sound quite egotistical because I've now remarried, and My wife is just incredible, and she's made me such a better person, and she keeps telling me I'm amazing. And I suddenly realize what the revenge is. The revenge is that my first wife is not with me. It took me 15 years to work it out that she lost. But I was so consumed by my pain that there's this other person who's going, do you know what? Being around you is a good experience, is a wonderful experience. And you ought to believe it also, because I didn't believe it, because what happens is you believe the bad press of this person that's left you.
Right.
I still think, part of me is still quite hurt by this. How could you do it? And then you realize that question can never be answered. How could you do this? What was the point of being married to me? What do you take from this? I till this day don't know what you take. The only thing, the best thing that ever happened to us was having our daughter. But other than that, what was the point? And you don't know. But yet I came sort of full circle out of the pain, because the pain speaks and the pain wants to be answered. And then once you can leave that and you get to this other place of growth, and then once you're growing, it was suddenly dawned on me, do you know what? This person, my wife, thought that I was significant. She kept telling me every day, she tells me I'm amazing or wonderful. And then one day, we've been married for 7 years now, and then one day I believed her. It took me 3 years, and I thought, like, wow, maybe she's right. Maybe she's right. Which we hear a lot is how we take on the personality, the identity of the people that treat us. We educate people how to treat us. It's hard to live when she did this thing, and actually my pain and my reaction to the pain is a reaction. It's almost like I caused part of this pain. I could have gone, do you know what? You've got no idea what you've got. Thank you for leaving. Get lost. I'm moving on. But I didn't have that emotional maturity. And that sounds quite cold and callous. But it took a journey to get to this place of, I'm okay. I'm not a bad person. I'm not insignificant. I'm not worth leaving. I'm worth loving. And the fact that the other person can't see it is not your fault, because you spend all your time thinking it's your fault.
Right.
I hope that makes sense.
No, it's very powerful. It's very powerful to, and I think we can all relate. My parents went through a breakup. I know my father was devastated by it. My mother moved on with other people, and my father tried everything to keep it together, and ultimately couldn't. And then met my stepmom, and 3-4 years later, and life is great. Probably.
Ask you a question?
Yeah.
What was it like watching that?
Well, to be honest, I was at college when it really kind of hit its pinnacle, right? I remember my dad picking me up Christmas my freshman year saying, hey, we're getting divorced. And prior to that, I saw inklings of things unraveling, but I was in denial. I was kind of in denial. And I remember I played college football, and it was parents' weekend, and they were going to be introducing my parents. And the coach came up to me pregame and said, hey, your mom's put a different last name down. Is there something you should be telling me? And I just was like, oh, no, she just likes to go by that. I totally lied in the moment, right? I didn't want to, I wanted to be in total denial about this. And I probably was very angry. I was very angry with my mom for years. And at one point just kind of realized, you know what, I'm just going to move on. She's my mom, and, I have to love her for that. But
did it affect your studies?
No, I did really well in school. Maybe it did affect my studies. I just dialed in and did well, right?
Focus.
Yeah. But I kind of came to the resolution that, you know what, I'm not going to let it, that relationship is not my relationship. I need to move on. And, but there's been other situations, like I alluded to in the beginning, or work situations which are more professional in nature. That, geez, if they didn't see the value in me, I worked so hard and I just missed out on these things. And, but, back to my quote about, people getting over things being narcissistic, I don't buy into that at all, because you don't know what's going on in the person's mind. They might be totally traumatized, but just are just tuning it all out as a way of coping.
I also find that I watch a lot of dating things. I like Esther Perel. Or Esther Perel. I don't know if you've heard of her. She's from Belgium. She's quite ingenious in what she does. But I think that never two people in relationships are the same. You can have a nod and a shake all in the same sentence. That's not your experience. And so to judge it, and that is, I find you cannot generalize at all. You really have to do the work, and we all have our individual take. I mean, one of the things I don't know, because one of the things I'm interested in your story, because one of the things I'd be interested in was how did you then pick your wife, or how was your relationships from there? Were you trusting in relationships? Were you skeptical about relationships? Did you dive in? Did you tip around? Having seen something break, how did you move forward?
Well, I'll be honest, I didn't do a lot of dating. When I was in law school, I dated, and I dated a girl for about 4 years. It probably should have lasted one, but I worked really hard to try and make it work. And, in hindsight, she was not interested and interested in putting in the effort. I think she liked having me around. But
before you go on, I shouldn't be counseling on your podcast, but doesn't that sound like your father's experience?
Oh, absolutely. And I had conversations with my dad about that, not so many words, but he was trying to coach me through it. And you know what, Paul? I broke up from that. I just had the courage and I walked away from it. And shortly thereafter, I met my wife. And I realized that bad patch in my life, because but for that bad patch, I probably would have left town. I could have gone anywhere to get a job. I stuck around for that relationship that was on the rocks from the beginning. But that kept me around to meet my wife. And I've been married 28 years now, and life is good. So sometimes life throws crap at us. But I will say this, early on in dating my wife, it was great. Everything was great, but I kept waiting for the shit to start. You know what I mean? And it never did. And it's been great.
I understand that. You sort of wait for the impending doom. I have my wife and I have been together for 7 years, as I said to you. We have these arguments, and we fight like Italians. And what I'm doing is I'm sabotaging the relationship because I feel it's coming. And so I feel it's coming, and I'm sometimes a bit rude, sometimes insulting, sometimes going, I don't know why you're with me anyway. And I'm not, and I'm doing this, and really I'm not. And this is really quite a horrible thing to I'm saying it to you, and as I realize what I'm doing. I'm not talking to her.
Interesting. Yeah.
I'm not talking to her. I'm actually having a conversation. Myself is having a conversation with my first. I'm fighting over there. I'm fighting that battle. I'm fighting that insignificant battle, and I don't want to go through the pain again. So I create scenarios where I feel I'm in control. And actually, and then the beautiful thing is that she just doesn't. She's just not falling for it. She's going like, listen, we're a team, we're together. Let's go make a cup of tea, shut up.
Right. Good for her.
And go from there. I mean, she's brilliant. It hurts, because sometimes you can be very hurtful in it because hurt people hurt, because you're still, this was the thing that is very difficult. I don't know, we hear hurt people, But I'm going to tell you, I don't know where this quote came from, but I'm going to tell you something that I discovered. When you open your heart, you open your wounds. And that was really difficult for me. It was difficult for me to love again, not because I couldn't love, because I couldn't love with the wounds, you know. So that was, it was very difficult. And so the most beautiful thing that she kept sort of intimating to me was, kept saying that, you know, you do know that, you know, your heart is safe in my hands. And that had to be a lot, because I just felt everything was unsafe. Everything was unsafe. And so you become your own saboteur in a way. So, yeah.
All right. You've got this, I guess, kind of wrapping up here. You got this book, Picking Up the Pieces, from brokenness to breakthrough.
Yeah, that was, I wrote the book as it was very cathartic. And then, you know, and I published the book, and somebody said to me, well, you do have to tell your ex-wife that you've written a book about this. And I was like, no, it's none of her business. But yeah, okay. But I did. I had to tell her. And I feel that there's the book was done about 3 years ago. It's on Amazon, and I feel as though I've moved on from the book, because before the book was simply the bus stop scenario for me. It was me enabling to give to you or anybody, listen, these are the steps I went through. You know, just when you think you're going crazy, other people went through these steps, and you're going to make it, and you're going to make it quicker than me. It took me 10 years. You can do this in a shorter distance because you're stronger. You know, you're not. I was an incredible saboteur of my own healing. I was the problem. Like, blame.
Well, it's Paul. It's not that they're better. It's just that they have you.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it, right? I mean, you've walked it. So here, I've done the bus stops. I've done all 12.
Yeah.
You're at 2. Hold my hand. I'm going to take you the rest of the way.
Yeah. And I enjoyed that for a long time.
Right.
But recently, in the last year and a half, I'm still doing it, but not. I was really 100% with it. But now, I'm trying to say something which is not patronizing. I was doing this so much and so well, and I was empathizing and being compassionate so well, but I am very sensitive, and I feel, and I was still feeling the emotions, and some days I just wanted to stop. Some days I just wanted to. I mean, you know, I just got a referral today. Someone said, "Listen, marriage is in trouble. Can you go and talk to them? You know, they're waiting for you to call. You know, they know of your success of what you do." And before I'd be jumping like, yes, okay, international rescue, you know, Superman, and then now I feel like, okay, fine, they are the hero, but I don't want to. Sometimes I don't want to go through the emotions of listening to the stories again. Because every time I hear it, it hurts. I've got to be honest with you. I'm not dispassionate to it. So if you tell me your story, I'm like, oh yeah, fine, you know, no problem. That happened 15 years ago. You know, I've moved on. I have moved on, but I feel it.
Yeah.
And I feel it. I have a friend who tells stories, and when he tells stories, you feel you're in the story. If he's having a fight, you feel like you're having a fight with him.
Right.
And I feel that. So I've been blessed in my work, in that I look after a church, but also what I'm doing now is very much looking after people in companies. I used to be an advertising sales director, and with the pandemic and the movement of work, that before you as managers we were responsible for work, but now we have to also be leaders of people. That if you have people in the office, or you're as a manager, you often think it's about skills and training, but actually it's more about just the human. They call it soft skills. I don't know why I call it. There's nothing soft about it. It's about the human side. It's about caring. It's about compassion. And what being broken and picking up the pieces has helped it's helped me to have the antenna to see pain. So before, when I told you the story, the guy walks into my office and he sits in my office and tells me how amazing I am. I cannot see pain. I can't see any pain. I can see success. I can see whatever, but I can't see pain. There was a lady that walked into my office. I know I'm speaking fast because I know we're coming to the end, but there's a lady that came into my office one day, and she, I'm going through. I'm still connected to the sales director position, but now I'm going for a divorce. I'm now 5-6 years in, and she comes into my office and she says to me, I'm going through this breakup, whatever, and she's telling me this thing. Now, normally I tell her to get out of my office. This is personal. This isn't business. But I listen to her, and then I suggest a few things to her, and then she walks out. Anyway, after lunch, she comes back into my office, furious, absolutely furious. Now, I think I've done something wrong,
right?
Because what I did in the office was I said to her, listen, I haven't got all the answers, but can I pray with you? Now, in England, praying in an office is not really the done thing. And, in some quarters, you could get sued for bringing God into the marketplace. And so she comes back into my office after lunch and she's fuming and she's angry. I'm very angry with you, she says. And I think, wow, I'm dead. And I said, well, what's the matter? She said to me, well, I walked into the office and I told you my problems, and you were so caring and compassionate and you listened to me. And she said, I walked out and I was thinking, but normally you're such a ruthless bastard. And she just walked out, And she was right. She was absolutely right. Before this trauma of my life, I didn't see people's pain. I didn't really care. I was looking for the goal. It was the money. It was the target. It was the prize, the bonus. People were collateral damage. I'd come back later and say, how are you doing? But at the time I was looking in that direction. Now I'm the person that stops. And so there's this text in the Bible, Genesis 50 verse 20, that says, what was meant for evil, God turns for good. And this trauma experience of mine, I wouldn't want on anybody. But in another way, it was the best thing that happened to me. It made me a better person, a more sensitive person. It made me, for all intents and purposes, a human being. I can see my world.
That's good. That's good stuff. Best way to get a hold of you?
Best way to get hold of me is I'm on Facebook a lot, and LinkedIn, Paul King Brown. If you want to meet me, go on LinkedIn, Paul King Brown. Okay. Facebook, Paul King Brown. My website, if you want to book a call, is wherepeoplegrow.com. I'm interested in just getting people to grow, especially salespeople, to create a culture. It's not just about selling, it's about who they are, and out of who they are, beautiful things happen, because people buy people.
That's true. I really appreciate your time today.
No, thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.